Welcome to another edition of Community Conversations. I'm Laura Wagoner, your host. In my community affairs role at Villanova University, I've met many exceptional people doing extraordinary work, from university professors and leaders of service organizations to law enforcement officials and township commissioners. The goal of this program is to provide you, the viewers, a monthly glimpse of the people making headlines at Villanova and across the township. Today I'll introduce you to one of those people that plays an instrumental role in helping make Villanova University the special place that it is. Mike Brown is a U.S. Army veteran who served 4 years active duty in the Army and during his time was deployed in Bosnia as part of the stabilization forces. Upon getting out of the military, Mike went to college at Northern Michigan University before moving to Pennsylvania to work for Congressman Patrick Murphy. Mike then got a job working for the city of Philadelphia, assisting veterans. He also led the Philadelphia Police Crisis Intervention Team, training at the police academy on how to effectively interact with veterans while on the job. Mike then went on to be the Director of Veteran Services for Montgomery County Community College before being hired as the Director of the Office of Veterans and Military Service Members at Villanova University. Mike holds a master's degree in clinical mental health counseling and is an active member of the Greater Philadelphia Veterans Network. Mike, thanks for being on today.
Thanks for having me. It's really great being here and speaking with you.
Good. So I gave a bit of your intro in the opening lines, but could you expand a little bit on your background with the Army?
Sure. So, sorry. When I was, going through high school, I really was thinking about next steps, as everyone does. And I really realized quickly that I wasn't prepared for college. I would have flamed out very quickly. And so I had a nice example. My brother joined the Navy before I did and was a CB. And I didn't want to be stuck on a ship, so I decided to join the Army. And so I did that. I went off in the summer of 1996. I joined the Army as an infantryman, so it means I went to Fort Benning, Georgia during the summer, which was quite different from Detroit, Michigan in the summer.
I'm
yes.
sure.
And then I was initially stationed in Germany for 2 years, which was fantastic. I miss Germany even today. And then my last 2 years, I was in Fort Hood, Texas. And so after that, I got out, and I knew at that point I was ready to take the next step in getting an education. So I went off to college, and eventually a long and winding road brought me to Pennsylvania.
Okay, so you went to Northern Michigan University. You are from Michigan?
I am. I grew up in Michigan. My dad worked for around 40 years at General Motors.
Okay.
And he was really, that was his life. He worked 6 days a week, 10 hours a day, doing that. I did not want to do that. I wanted to, sort of learn what else was out there. And the reason I went to Northern was because of this. It was a best fit for me as far as class size, the program. I was accepted to the University of Michigan, Michigan State, and Northern Michigan University, and I decided to go to Northern just based on some of those decisions.
Okay, so what was your transition like coming out of the Army and going into higher education?
It was definitely one that I learned a lot from, and I still use some of those lessons today. So I think one of the lessons learned was I was a non-traditional student. I didn't live in the dorms. I was almost always the oldest person in my classroom. And I think the experiences that I had were so wildly different from many of my classmates who were fresh out of high school. I had gone on a deployment. I had come back. I had seen the world. And the one thing that really helped me was networking and meeting other veterans on campus. And that can mean from professors to staff members to fellow students. That was really instrumental in really taking the next steps in my career and finding out what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to go to college, but I didn't really understand what I wanted to be when I grew up yet. Mm-hmm. And through the guidance of professors and students, it really showed me where that niche could be. And so I think, I apply those lessons today is, I want to be able to build relationships and a community environment on Villanova's campus to sort of replicate that, because I think it can be, so powerful in the next steps for a student veteran.
Sure. So you went from Michigan to Pennsylvania.
Yeah, when I got out of college, the economic downturn was sort of just starting, and employment in Michigan was not the best. So I looked. I'm from Michigan. It's really where I wanted to be. And when I got out of college, when I graduated, but I couldn't find really anything that was meaningful. My good friend who we did everything together. He had moved out here to Doylestown, and he was working for NFL Films. And he said, we're always looking for people just to just to get their foot, And so I did. I came out here and I worked for NFL Films for about a year and a half.
But wow, what were you doing with that?
I was just doing lighting technician. So you see in the studio, I was a lighting technician for NFL Films. And it was fine, but it wasn't meaningful work as far as I wasn't passionate about it. And one day I was walking around the Grange Fair in Bucks County, which is sort of like a 4-H fair kind of feel. And I happened to meet a young man who was running for Congress by the name of Patrick Murphy. And we started chatting, and I learned a lot about his vision. And so that's what got me here, and that's what kept me here,
Sure.
if that makes sense.
Yeah, so Patrick Murphy is the first Iraq War veteran to run and win a congressional seat. Can you talk a little bit about sort of what that election meant to you working on it, and also what it could mean for other veterans who see that and see that as such like an inspirational story? Yeah,
I think what Patrick did was he wasn't an established politician. He didn't have, oodles of money. He literally just entered a race and through a grassroots effort defeated the incumbent. And I think what that was an example of is, and I think it's still missing in places around this country, is real leadership and sticking to those feelings of no matter what side of the table you're on, he stuck to his guns, if you will, and really I think provided a landscape for what leadership can look like after your military service. And what we did was, we changed the GI Bill. We did a lot of really interesting things for service members and veterans. And I think he is now, even today, still acting as a mentor for veterans who want to continue their public service in any capacity, whether it's a school board or congressional seat or whatever. People still reach out to him today to seek guidance. And I think for me, being a part of something, that's what I was missing. In the military, that's what you're always part of something. Here's the next mission. And getting out, I think a lot of veterans look for that. And for me, it was fantastic. I was a political science major, and I was, literally using my degree to help someone who I was, very loyal to and passionate about, not only just win an election, but really change some policies for this country.
So talk to me about the revisions to and the update of the GI Bill. Where was it, and where did you guys take it?
So the old GI Bill was called the Montgomery GI Bill, and what it did was it paid you a monthly stipend at the end of every month to go to school. So if you were a full-time student, you got around $2,000 a month, depending on your zip code, et cetera. And what the new GI Bill was, at that point it was called the post 9/11 GI Bill. So it was for veterans who had served on active duty post 9/11. This was around 2008, 2009 is when it was brought into place. And what it did is not only paid you that monthly stipend, it paid the tuition and the fees for the university you were attending. So let's say you wanted to go to Montgomery County Community College. It paid all those tuition and fees and paid you that $2,000 monthly stipend. So basically it treated going to school as your job. So it allowed people to not have to focus on working a full-time job and being a full-time student. It allowed them to really focus their energies on being a student and being successful in that. So that was really, to me, a huge shift. And the the numbers bear out as far as how many people are using the GI Bill. And the other nice thing that is now happening is you can transfer those benefits to your dependents. So if you're serving in the military and already have a degree, you want to give it to your son or daughter or your spouse,
Wow.
you can do that now, and they get that same benefits.
That's great.
So it's really a fantastic benefit to use.
Great. I'm sure that means a lot to you to have worked on that bill.
Absolutely. And it's really had a big impact, not only for veterans, but also their family members.
Mm-hmm. So following Congressman Murphy, you went and worked for the city of Philadelphia. Talk to me a little bit about what you did for them.
City of Philadelphia, I was working for the Department of Behavioral Health, and what I would do is I would go and assist veterans who were involved in the criminal justice system in a variety of different capacities. So if a veteran is incarcerated, we would go actually into the prisons and find some support systems outside so that when they were approaching their release date, they weren't just patted on the back and said good luck. They were actually given to an organization where they could find some support systems and stop that revolving door of the criminal justice. So it's looking at recidivism is what we really looked at and trying to cut that. And we did. We were effective. We cut the recidivism rates by a large number. That was working with veterans incarcerated. There's also the creation of veterans courts across the country, and Philadelphia has a very strong one with the leadership of Judge Patrick Dugan, who's a former 82nd Airborne Iraq War veteran himself. And what that does is takes non-violent criminals, in this case veterans, maybe they have possession or drunk driving, whatever it is, and instead of giving them a traditional route through the criminal justice system, they give them some support systems and wrap some services around them in a holistic manner to, again, address some of their needs outside of just go meet your probation officer and take a urine analysis. We're giving them access to equine therapy, group therapy, the VA, whatever it is that they need. And again, what we saw was, and what it's still happening today, is the recidivism rate is drastically lower. The success rate, meaning that the veterans who go through the process aren't getting rearrested. And through that, they can get their record expunged. So it looks like they never, so that helps with employments, with so many things. So that was really an impactful job, and I really enjoyed it. But the one thing I saw was it was having an effect on my mental health. I was going into courts and jails, and it wasn't the best for me. But it was that shared sense of purpose. It was something that I was instilled and very passionate about, and I did that for around 5 years.
Oh, wow. Are other cities or states in the country doing those programs, or is that unique to Philadelphia?
It is not unique to Philadelphia. Veterans courts have sprung up all over this country. Montgomery County, Bucks County, Chester County, Philadelphia all have some sort of veterans court program. And what they've seen, again, nationally, not just regionally, is that it's a successful program. It's basically modeled after a drug court or a mental health court, where you're taking services into the courtroom. Instead of just saying, go find these services on your own, you're really bringing nonprofits and governmental agencies into the courtroom to really provide the services right there to make it a one-stop shop.
That's great. And do those organizations seek out veterans, or veterans would need to reach out to them?
It's a little bit of both.
Okay.
So, I mean, the VA is literally sitting in the courtroom.
Okay.
So, you need appointments, we can set those up for you right on the spots. So that, again, you're trying to make it so that they don't have excuses. That's what you're really trying to do. Well, it's my whatever. Instead of them trying to say, here's an appointment, it's really walking them to the appointment. It's providing them a way to avoid those excuses.
Okay. All right, so you did that for 5 years, and then you did another turn, and you went into higher education at Montgomery County Community College.
I did. I saw that as a different opportunity, and what I learned very quickly at Montgomery County Community College is that's where a lot of veterans find themselves, in a good way, at a community college, is that naturally when you get out of the military, there's a transition, there's a point in which you're trying to learn about what you want to do next, and a community college is a really good way to learn that. There's so many different programs, there's a lot of flexibility with the schedule, and you're still getting all your tuition and fees paid for, and you're still getting that monthly stipend. So it's really a great place to land, to learn about yourself, to meet other student veterans. And at Montgomery County Community College, they have their own building devoted just to veterans, the Veterans Resource Center right on campus. And it was a robust, fantastic place that on average we had between 300 and 400 veterans getting their education through the community college every single year.
Wow. And how long were you there?
I was there for 4.5 years, and it was some of the best years of my life. It was really a great way to be a mentor for student veterans on the ground floor, because they would constantly be in that building. So we had really, again, what I tried to do is bring resources to them. And just like the Veterans Court, we're trying to avoid excuses. You know, I would bring in the VA, I would bring in other universities and institutions who they might want to transfer to. I'd bring them to the community college to make that available to them. So it was a great program, and really it was a great institution.
Okay, so from there you came to Villanova.
I did.
Talk to me about how you got to Villanova and what sort of work we do with veterans on campus.
So I saw, just happened to see one day that Villanova was posted this job as the director of the Office of Veterans and Military Service Members. It's a name that I did not come up with, but it is the office that I oversee. And
was that a new office?
Yeah, and
Okay.
in looking at it, I learned quickly that there's never been a me before at Villanova, so that was intriguing to me. It was really a place where I could come and almost like a startup, an entrepreneurial spirit, just try some things out, see what works, what doesn't. And fortunately, I was hired, and I was brought on in October of last year. So I've been at Villanova now a little over a year, and I've really enjoyed it. But so if you take a step back, I was at the community college for 4.5 years, and as soon as I got to Villanova and started to ask some questions about how do we know who veterans are or not? How do we know who their dependents are? That kind of stuff. I quickly learned that not one student veteran from Montgomery County Community College had ever in my time come and transferred to Villanova. So that to me was a red flag. Like, why is that? What's going on? And so that was sort of in the back of my brain. And the next thing I started asking about was the Yellow Ribbon program. And so that was something that schools and the VA can do, and we weren't, as an institution, really effectively utilizing the Yellow Ribbon to its potential, if you will.
And what is the Yellow Ribbon?
So the Yellow Ribbon program is the VA and institutions around America have come up with a program where if the tuition and fees cost more than what the VA is willing to pay an institution. So what they do every year, the VA, is they have a cap annually. It's around $25,000 per year at any institution, whether it's Harvard or a community college. They're going to pay up to $25,000. Obviously, some institutions like Villanova, but like Penn State, many institutions, it costs more than $25,000. So the Yellow Ribbon program is an agreement between that institution, in this case Villanova, and the VA to cover the difference between that $25,000 cap and what the tuition is. Okay. So they split the difference. So let's just say the number is $50,000. So that means there's a $25,000 difference between the VA cap and what the actual cost is. So in this case, we now split the difference, $12,500 a piece, for up to 50 students at Villanova University. In 35 of that is an undergraduate, and 15 in the graduate world, to include law school. So that means, in practical terms, is that students can go to Villanova using the GI Bill as long as they're eligible for the Yellow Ribbon for free. The VA and Villanova covers all of their tuition and fees, and they get that monthly housing allowance. So you can go to elite institutions, and that's what other schools are doing. We're not sort of new to this. We're actually behind some of our peers in that. Harvard, Yale, Princeton, the Ivies obviously use it. Then you look at Notre Dame.
So similar schools, Notre Dame, Boston College,
Right.
Georgetown. How do we measure up to those in terms of this program?
I think we're now on more of a level playing field. Notre Dame covers, we do 50, Boston College does 80, and Notre Dame does unlimited. So if 1 million students got into Notre Dame tomorrow and there were veterans, they would all go to school there for free.
Wow.
Obviously, it's hard to get into Notre Dame,
Sure.
just like it's hard to get into Villanova, but they have really put an emphasis on that. And so I think we're a little bit behind, but we're catching up. And that's the goal, right, is to be more like our peers, to take away some of the competitive advantages or disadvantages that we may have. And then when you look at the numbers, we are still lagging behind with our numbers of student veterans in an undergraduate capacity. We have a lot of student veterans in the graduate world. We don't right now have a lot in the undergraduate.
So what can be done, knowing all this information that you know, what can Villanova do better?
I think the one thing that we could do a better job of is taking a look at our transfer process to the institution. So, for example, Princeton, just up the street, really has done remarkable work with taking student veterans who are from community colleges in the area, who are high achieving, who meet the requirements academically, and they've made it a different application process. So instead of going through the Common App, they've created a separate application for a transfer students, and that has opened up the doors. And so they have gone from 3 to almost 25 in the course of 3 years of undergraduate student veterans on their campus. So that's just one model of something that we could be doing. Other things that we could do is really look at mapping out what student veterans are doing at the community college and what is out there in the career space, and sort of mapping that. So creating some programs here at the institution that go along with, if 90% of student veterans at Montco are taking computer science, well, let's figure out a way to sort of get that and work with career services to, so we're going from community colleges to career and, finding that roadmap for our student veterans. I think another way is touching with all of our alumni out in the world. And
do we track how many of our alumni are veterans?
We do, yes. And we're now starting to create some programs and mechanisms to have more touch points with our veteran alumni, to bring them back to school, to have maybe some job shadowing opportunities or mentoring opportunities. So that's another, I think, tool to use that can be effective when we're looking at how can we effectively support and interact with student veterans, and how do we get them here, right? That's really the goal. And right now we have a College of Professional Studies, and that is one of the best places for student veterans to land. It's flexible with their scheduling. They have programs that work, and similar to what we're talking about with the transfer process, they have a separate application already. So if a student veteran is sitting at Delaware County Community College tomorrow and says, I want to be a computer scientist, we have a natural landing spot in our College of Professional Studies for that student. And today, that's where most of our undergraduate student veterans are housed, in the College of Professional Studies. And that's fantastic, and I look forward to working with them and getting some more student veterans here.
So you're doing a lot on campus.
Yes.
Let's talk a little bit about the community. I know you're active in the Greater Philadelphia Veterans Organization. Is there, in Radnor or in Delaware County, what could we be doing to work with the community in terms of veterans?
So I think one thing that we did last year was with the Medal of Honor Grove. It is adjacent to Valley Forge.
Yes, I grew up right down the street from
Yes. And so on September 21st, we had over 130 staff and students go to the Medal of Honor Grove, and we had our day of service. That's what we did. So we spent 8 hours there cleaning up.
It's incredible.
And so that will be our site, every year moving forward will be that. We are working with the Delaware County Veterans Memorial. We're going to start working with them to, I think there's a couple of ways to honor some veterans who are listed on that memorial, but also raise awareness that I think we can do concurrently with each other and support each other in a lot of different ways. So I think there are mechanisms, but I'm always looking for community partners. I think the one thing we're working on at the law school is it's a program called Wills for Heroes. And through the law school, through one of our clinics, we do Wills for Heroes, meaning that if you're a first responder or a veteran, you have free access to get your will created, totally free. So if you're a veteran, a service member, a police officer, a firefighter, you can come and students at the law school on campus will create a will for you right there with your family. So we're looking to do something like that here on campus. So again, that's something that we can offer the community.
Our listeners or viewers are able to take part in that.
So that's something that we want to do more of as we move forward.
Okay, last question. You were recently awarded a Veterans of Influence Award from the Philadelphia Business Journal. What does something like that mean to you, looking back over your career and all the things we just talked about?
I think, just for me personally, I think I don't really think of awards as something that I tout or look. I look at, just like I was in the military, is I'm never be satisfied. Always move towards making the world a better place. Mm-hmm. And for me, that means making Villanova a more friendly place for veterans. And so I can be given all the awards. That's not going to appease me or stop me from moving the ball forward. And it was nice to be, recognized for some of the work that I've done. But I believe that there is a lot more to do, and I will be very passionate about getting that job done at Villanova University.
Well, we're looking forward to see what else you do at Villanova and what's next for you. So thank you so much for being on the show today, Mike. I'd like to thank Mike Brown for participating in today's show. We look forward to next month's show as we introduce you to other individuals making news and positively impacting the communities around us. For more information on some of the great things happening at Villanova and for opportunities to be involved, please visit www.villanova.edu/neighbors.